give you a couple minutes, I'll get back to that, okay? The most important thing in the game is quality pigeons. I'm gonna tell you, you can't feed special enough, you can't train special enough, you can't medicate special enough to have a champion. He has to have been bred to be a champion. Now, you can screw him up. That's what we all do. We goof them up. We lose more and we get rid of good, we hurt good ones and don't get the performance out of them. So, how do we handle those things? What's the important part? I don't medicate all so much anymore. I do, there's a new vaccine out. I'll tell you about that. This is called rotavirus vaccine, R-O-T-O. And it's the most important vaccine that's came out since I've been in pigeons. It's been out 3 years. And it eliminates young bird sickness where they just drop dead on you. And it kills, it eliminates E. coli and salmonella by stopping circovirus and adenovirus. Those are two viruses that wipe the immune system to a pigeon. And those viruses, the door's open by the rotavirus. So if you stop the rotavirus, you don't get these other problems. And it's dramatically changed young birds' health. And so it's available and has P&B in it. Siegel sells it. And I highly recommend you get it. And I vaccinate, they say vaccinate them twice, but there's a couple of stories. Herbots in Belgium, he says once is enough. I've done it just once. I vaccinate when I pull them out of the nest. And it has P&B vaccine in it, so it eliminates you having to do P&B. And I've done them twice before, but one of my best friends in Belgium is Serge Van Elsecker, and he only does it once. My other good friends, Andre Rodoff, he does it 3 times. But Van Elsecker had no sickness, no problems, and to stop the young bird sickness problem. So anyway, that's something I don't want to forget to tell you. That's real important to get that done.
Rick, is that vaccine available here in the United States?
Siegel's
Steve, okay.
and some other people. Siegel's got it. It's $53 a bottle for 50, I think. And I think that's the price. That's what it was a few months ago, in the $50 range. And it does the job. It does the job. What you need to do is you have to prepare your birds to get ready to race. And what you have to do is you have to get them conditioned. If I told you you had to run 3 miles today, you probably couldn't do it. And maybe some of you can, but most of you probably can't. But if I told you you didn't have to run 3 miles for 6 or 8 weeks, you could work your way up. Well, that's the deal with pigeons. It's not sink or swim. It's not throw them in and expect them to go. You need to condition them before you go down the road. You need to loft fly them, flag them, whatever. You need to get them out. Some guys are able to open loft. Hawks have kind of put a dent in that in the last few years. But you need to get them flying an hour around the loft before you go down the road with them. You need them prepared. If they make a mistake, they can overcome it and come home. And old birds, and do you want to start with young birds or old birds? And we'll start with old birds because it's coming up. And old birds, they're experienced. So you can move out a lot quicker, right? You don't have to baby them to start with. But you need to get them exercising. They need to be exercising an hour. Then you need to clean them up for respiratory or respiratory. The best thing out to do is doxycycline, Doxy-T, and Siegel sells it. And doxycycline and Tylenol combined. And mycoplasmosis is a problem that bothers pigeons, and we don't see it. If they're only flying an hour, you don't see any effects. You can't tell they got it. They can even fly 2 or 3 hours, and you can't tell they got it. But when they get to 4 hours, they're coming late. So you need to clear the respiratory tract, and you need to go with Doxy-T, doxycycline, and you treat for 7 full days. 7 full days. And I think it's 4 measures. It comes, the directions are on the bottle, okay, the exact amount. And I'm getting ready to do mine. When I get back next week, I'll start. I wanna wait where it's not freezing for a week so I can get it in there and do it. And, you need to treat with Doxy T, and that's gonna help them feel good and start exercising. Some people wanna treat for canker. I don't do much canker treatment anymore. I used to do it often, but now I don't seem to have it, and Doxy T seems to serve that purpose. So I get them flying an hour. I'm gonna sit down up here, guys. I get them flying an hour, and once they're loft flying real well, then I'll basket them, start them down the road. Now, if they're old birds, I'll maybe go 10 or 15 miles the first time. What I do is I only turn out a crate at a time, because the first few tosses they can screw up. They can make a mistake and go by you. So if I put them separate, they're all not gonna screw up at the same time. And I don't try to put only these in one basket, these in the other. I teach my birds to load in the basket. I put a basket on the outside of the hallway, and they learn to run in it. And if I had to catch them by hand anymore, I don't know if I could do that. So they load up pretty quick, and it saves a lot of time. And I'm gonna take them down 10 or 15 miles until they come good from there. So, until they come in 20 minutes. So they're doing good. Once they come good, then I go maybe 20 miles. That's with the old ones. Then I'll get them out, then I'll go 30 miles. Then I'll stay at 30 miles a while and try to start getting some conditioning. That's gonna take them 40 minutes, depends on the wind, 35, 40 minutes. But then I move them out to 50 or 60 miles. I would like to take them to get 2 hours on the wing once or twice before the races. We started 100, we have a club 100-mile race, and then we move right to 150 and 2 and on out. So I'd like to get 2 hours on them, and what 2 hours does is it tells me if they have problems. I don't know if it helps them as much as it helps me, because if they take too long from 2 hours, on a 2 hour on the wing, and that could be 80 miles, it could be 100 miles with the tailwind. If they take too long or they're screwing up, I'll see it. Somebody's got an issue, he's gonna be behind the flock. He's gonna have a problem. And I'll start turning the flock as a group once after 2 or 3 tosses. I won't worry about it for the first 2 or 3 tosses, but after that, then I'll start cutting them out. I don't have the patience to sit around and wait on them anymore. I just cut them out and head home. And, that'll get them ready. Now, I fly some sort of widowhood, always have. And how many here fly a widowhood system? Okay. How many here don't think their birds can fly widowhood? Well, they can. Well, why do we fly widowhood? What widowhood is just a separation of the sexes, so they're not together during the week. And the reason we do that is, what happens if a cock's driving a hen? It takes a lot of energy out of her. He's chasing her all day, trying to get her in the nest to lay her eggs, and it just is too much energy. I want the energy on race day. I want it to happen there. So a widowhood system allows them to conserve the energy during the week, and then have it ready to go on. You trigger it by showing them sometimes. You don't always have to show after a while. They learn they're gonna get to come home. On a widowhood system, be it the cocks or the hens, when they come home, they get to go together. What I do on my birds, I just raise some babies out of my racers. Not all of them laid, not all of them, because I have a bunch of yearlings. About half the yearlings didn't lay eggs in cold weather. They just didn't do it. Half of them did. I weaned all the babies last week. Now they're starting to lay back. Some of these others are starting to lay. I'm giving them dummy eggs. I'm not going to let them raise any more babies. Raising a baby is harder than racing. It's pretty hard work. Put dummy eggs on them. I go in the morning, run them all out to exercise, and I'll stand out there with some tennis balls or basketballs, something to make them get up and start flying. Now, right now, I've been turning mine out 2 or 3 times a day. I've been home, except for this past week in the weather. But good days, they'll go out 2 or 3 times because I'm home. And they're up flying 20, 30 minutes at a time. They'll go out 2 or 3 different times. But starting next week, I'm going to start making them give me close to an hour. I want them to want to give me an hour, want to fly an hour. The problem is, while they're together, they want to play house. They want to come in and go back to those eggs. So I lock them out when they can't come back in. They have to stay out. I'll put flags up, garden flags on the loft, and that's a trigger that when they're up, they can't come down. They've got to learn that when I'm flagging them, they've got to stay up. And usually within a matter of 2 weeks, they got it figured out. They're gonna go give me an hour. 45 minutes is enough. I'm happy with 45 minutes. 45 minutes to an hour. And usually I only have to use those flags 2 or 3 weeks, and then they know what to do. I don't bother to flag them anymore. Once I separate them, they'll start flying more. Now, I leave them together while I'm training because it's just easier on me. It's easier to load them. I don't have to separate them every time they come in. And they're sitting on dummy eggs, so they're not gonna hatch anything. And I don't have to worry about something freezing or anything. And so I'll just start training. I'll get them out. I'd like to get them to 2 hours flying time about 2 weeks before the first race. Last 2 weekends before the first race. Take them out 75 to 100 miles, depending on the weather. And get them coming. By then, I've got them coming. The week before the first race, I'll separate them. I'll separate the hens and cocks. And the first week you separate, the cocks and the hens both are gonna give you problems. They don't wanna fly then because they wanna get back together. So you need to put that flag back up then because they're gonna fight you. And I'm flying them separate then. I exercise the cocks first. You can exercise the hens first, it don't make a difference. I do it in the mornings. I'm retired, so I can do it in the mornings. The cocks will go up. I want to get 45 minutes to an hour, but that first week you separate, they're going to try to come down and sneak in. So you got to shut the trap so they can't get in because they want back in there, thinking that hen's in there. And I've got the hens locked in the compartment on the side, and they can't see them. Okay. Then I'm going to when they come in, and the reason I fly the cocks first is they'll come in easier than the hens. They'll come right down, you open the door, they see you walking to open the door, they're gonna flock down and bust the traps to get in there. Because they think that hen's in there. And so I'll get them on in, or if I turn the hens out first, they can tend to wanna fly longer and longer. And that delays me getting the cocks out. And it delays the whole scenario. And the hens all don't come down at one time. Half of them will come down. Some will stay up 10 minutes longer. Some will stay up 30 minutes longer. So they have to trap in. What I do is when the hens are out, I take the cocks out of the pen where the nest boxes are, put them in a hallway on the front, in front of the young birds, and let the hens trap in. And they'll trap right into the boxes. When they come in, I run them into the hallway and run them back to their compartment over to one side. And they cannot see each other, okay? They can't see each other. And that's the system I use. Now, I train. How often do I train during the season? If they're exercising like I want, maybe 1 day a week. Sometimes not even that week. I fly my birds every week. I had birds last year that flew 100, 150, 200, 200, 300, 400, 200, 500, 200, 500, 10 weeks in a row. And the best ones flew most all the races. And if they were on time, they went back the next week. And what do I consider on time? Usually when I have a race, on the shorter races, you're gonna get a lot of birds soon, close together. And if somebody comes late, an hour behind the front ones, they're gonna get the next week off. And I'm gonna look at them and see why they were an hour late. It could be they just followed somebody and weren't paying attention. But they're not gonna go back the next week. I'll put somebody fresh in. And so, but the ones, you're only as good as your best pigeon. You only race as good as your best pigeon races. And the more you can race your best pigeon, the better you're gonna be for the whole year. And so, I'm gonna repeat them week after week. They'll fly a 400, a 500, 2 500s, and I don't have any concerns about it, as long as they're on time. I think they can recover from anything under 4 hours. They can recover overnight. If it's a 4 hours or less, they'll recover overnight. There's no problem. Every hour after that takes a little more time to recover. And it depends on the pigeon. And if they fly 400 miles, you aren't going to get them as quick. They're not going to be right on top of each other. But there'll be a group, if I said 10, I'll have 6, say, within 20 minutes of each other. Well, those 6 are going back. And the others won't. They'll get a week off. And it may not be they need the week off for conditioning as much as they just made a mental mistake, but I don't know what it is, and I just know that I want to send fresh ones back and repeat the good ones. And repeat the good ones. Now, how do I feed? I told you can't feed special enough to win a race. I fly with feed in front of my pigeons almost all the time. I know that's contrary to what everybody says, but every bird eats a different amount of food. And I try to put enough food down that it's gone at the end of the day. I don't want it there overnight. But I fly just about with feed in front of them. Now, as the races get longer, or when it's colder, I'll add corn. Like right now, I'm adding corn to their feed because they want it. I've got this feed mix I'm feeding right now has too many peas in it. They're leaving them. They don't want them. They don't want it. I end up dumping them out, feeding them to the deer, and throwing them back to the property. But I add corn. As the races get longer, they need more fat. They burn fat first when they're working long hours. So when they go over 6, especially when they go over 8 hours, they need extra help. And that's when I feed sunflower hearts. I used to feed a lot of safflower, but my birds have quit eating the safflower the last few years, and I think they've either treated it with something and they don't like it. I don't know what it is, but it used to be I couldn't feed them enough. But they do eat the sunflower hearts like crazy. So as the races get a little longer, I add small seeds to their feed. And I add corn if they'll eat it. But the trouble is, as it gets warmer, they quit the corn. They don't want the corn. When it's cold, like now, they want the corn. So, but they will eat the small seeds. And so I feed a lot of a lot of sunflower hearts. And as long as they'll eat them, and I don't worry about, I'll feed them the regular feed, go down there, throw sunflower hearts, might come back, throw them some more. I don't worry about getting them too fat because I'm gonna take it off of them. But as long as they're up there flying an hour, as long as they're doing all this stuff, they need the energy because I'm gonna take it from them. I'm gonna make them give it to me every week. So sunflower hearts from Tractor Supply is what I've been using. Partway through the season, if I think I got a funky race, I'm not happy, I don't get enough in good time, I'll probably treat again for 5 days with the Doxy T. If I get a funky race, now sometimes everybody has a funky race. If we have a race that's not normal and they're all screwy, and then that's not a trigger for me. You're gonna have one of those this season, it's just gonna happen. They're gonna start off the wrong direction for some crazy reason, and it's gonna be screwy. But typically, as long as they're coming on time, and everything looks fine, but if I get a race where instead of getting 6 early, I only had 3 early, instead of getting 8 early, I only have 2 early, then I'm gonna treat with Doxy T for 5 days. And I'll put it in the water Sunday through Thursday, and Friday they get fresh water, back to fresh water. The other thing I do, and this is something I picked up when I flew in Belgium, Van Elsecker did this, I feed a lot of different grits and minerals. I don't give any vitamins. I haven't given vitamins in 40 years. It's a waste. The grains have vitamins. They don't have minerals. We've grown these crops so much that we've took the minerals out of the soil. So I supplement minerals. And I use a product called Sweet Legs. It's an animal livestock mineral. And I just ran out and I gotta go get some. And it's just a red livestock mineral, not too much salt in it. And I mix it in the grit. And I have 4 kinds of grit, and granite and oyster shell, and I mix them all up. And then I get a bucket, I put sprinkle the minerals on top of it, and they go eat it every day. But after a race, after a hard race, they'll eat grit before they eat feed. Watch them. They'll go eat grit before they eat feed. So I don't know if they want the minerals or they actually want the grit to help digest the food. I don't know. But they do that. So I use minerals. I think it's one of the important things you can do. As the races get longer, I probably quit training. As long as they're exercising, still exercising. Now, there's a lot of ways to do this. There's a lot of different ways, and I've done things differently based on my schedule, based on weather conditions. Last year, I was national champion, general champion for all distance. I didn't loft fly. I had a hawk problem. I had a big hawk problem. If I loft flew because they were up all day long. So I trained them twice a week from 40 miles. Trained them twice a week from 40 miles the whole season and never a loft flew because the hawks were killing me. And I've done that before. Back in the 74, I flew in Dallas Combine, and I flew a team of hens. And that group of hens, I trained them 1 day a week from 60 miles. And they won champion loft and average speed in the combine. And the reason I didn't loft fly them was it was the first year I flew widowhood too. And I had a widowhood loft over here. And these hens were going over that widowhood loft driving those cocks crazy. And I thought, that ain't gonna work. So I flew my cocks in one club, the Dallas Limley Club, and my hens in the Dallas Homing Club in Dallas. And they both flew good. The hens outflew the cocks, but I had better hens than cocks. And that's the reason I flew the hens and did just strictly give up and fly cocks. Now, a lot of people only fly cocks in widowhood in Belgium, but that's changed. That's dramatically changed. In Belgium, when I first started going I started going first time in '84. Very few people flew hens and old birds. Very few. And now almost everybody does. They fly some sort of double widowhood. And but some of them actually have hens whose cocks don't race, and they have cocks whose hens don't race. They just use them as mates for them. And a lot of good flyers are that way. But several of them are flying separated sexes and let them come together. Now, as far as showing them before the race, I used to think that was real important. I think it's more important to have a really good pigeon than that. They figure it out. You know, as you got older, you learn to do things that are easier for you. You're looking for the shortcuts, like loading in the crate without me having to catch them one at a time. Well, I found out if I don't particularly have to show them all the time, or some little trick I did that worked pretty good. I have the hallway in front of the pens, and the pens are back here. And there's some wire here. I let the hens go to the hallway, and the cocks see them out there, right? But they can't get to them, the hens can't get to the cocks. Then I run the hens all in the crates. Then I let the cocks in the hallway and run them all in different crates. Then I take them into my shop and separate them, who goes to who. And so I've done that, and it's done well. I've done games where I've had hens pair up to each other, and I gave them extra eggs. I give them 5 or 6 eggs where they're trying to cover them all, get them all, and then one of the best hens I had was a hen 1201 from, what year was she from? She was one of only two daybirds at 500-mile race, and she flew a 400-mile race the Sunday before the 500. And she was paired to another hen, and they had babies. They didn't have babies. How could 2 hens have babies? I gave them some dropper babies that were a week old. And the nest bowl was on the floor. And I kept moving that nest bowl closer to the feed trough. So shipping day, they were driving that hen crazy because them hens were coming over wanting to eat, and she didn't want them near her babies. And I clocked her at 9:01 at night. And actually, I was talking to him, talking to Gary, and I had another one come in 2 minutes later. There were only 2 day birds. But Troy, I'd set her up because she'd won another race, and she was a real good one. You can't set up bad pigeons and make them good pigeons. That don't work. It's a waste of time. You need good pigeons. And how do you find good pigeons? You need to find pigeons from lines of birds that produce a lot of good pigeons. One of the old lines was Jansen's. Everybody had Jansen's. They go generation after generation of winners and winners. The hot lines, all right, in the last few years have been the Vandenberg pigeons, the Gabby Vandenberg pigeons. And they've gone down generation after generation after generation. And the other has been the Cannibal line from Derek Van Dyke. And that's probably, most of my good pigeons have those 3 bloodlines now. Cannibal line, Cannibal was the ace pigeon of Belgium. His father was a cock called a Rambo. I offered Derek Van Dyke $50,000 for Rambo, he turned me down. And my wife said 2 fools meant that done. But anyway, he went on to breed a lot of good pigeons, and Cannibal Rambo won 3 firsts in Antwerp Union, and first youngster he bred was a bird called Borges that won 2nd national Borges against 43,000 pigeons. And the next year he bred Cannibal, who was the ace pigeon of all Belgium. And then that line has just gone down and down and down. Cannibal's grandson for Koopman, the Kleiner Dirk, was the best. And Kleiner Derek Van Dyke is spelled Dirk, D-I-R-K, but in Flemish you say Derek. And I've known him since 1985 or 86. So I call him Derek because that's his name. But Dirk is how everybody else sees it, D-I-R-K. So Kleiner Dirk was a grandson of Cannibal. So the ace pigeon of all Belgium is the grandfather of the ace pigeon of all Holland. And then the Kleiner Dirk was paired to, he was Cannibal Vandenberg. He was paired back to Cannibal Vandenberg, and they bred a hairy line, which was, bird had 3 firsts over 20,000 pigeons, and just prepotent. So that's what I'm saying. You get good pigeons from lines that produce good pigeons, not just an accident. The worst thing can happen to you is you get one really good pigeon over here, because they're going to breed back to normal. They're not going to breed. If champions bred champions, we'd all have champions. But then we'd have to find something better, wouldn't we? So you've got to find a line where a lot of champions happen. And you can blend those lines together, and that's good. But back to racing oglars. When you're flying, when you get out to the longer races, I no longer flag anymore. They should want to fly. But on Monday, when the birds come in, I make sure I want the birds to eat when they come home from a race. I think the worst thing can happen is they come home and they don't eat anything after expelling all that energy. So I want to make sure they eat something, and so I give them sunflower hearts. And they'll go down and eat them, okay? I want them to eat something, especially on the longer races. I want them to eat, help them recover. And on the races that are, shall we say, under 8 hours, or 6 hours or less, I'll separate it at the end of the day. If they start coming in at noon or 1 o'clock, I'll separate them at the end of the day. Take the hens out and the cocks out. Hopefully everybody's home. You know, maybe I got one straggler comes the next day, but that's all right. It's not a problem. I'll take it out. And then as I separate, I don't turn anybody out Sunday. I don't let them out Sunday. I usually give them a bath on Sunday. Every Sunday I give them a bath. If they go into the bath pan on Sunday, they're feeling pretty good. If a bird doesn't feel good, he doesn't take a bath. So that's a trigger to me. They're feeling good. They jump in the bath, they want to take a bath, right? And why do you wait till Sunday? Because I don't want to take the bloom off the feathers till after the race. That white powder gets all over all my shirts. The reason I have gray shirts is because you can't see that white powder. So that white powder allows those feathers to glide over the top of each other and not wear each other out. And I know guys, you're going to give them a bath on shipping day. So I'm going to take the the silk off of them before they go to work. That don't make sense to me. I know a couple of good flyers that do that, but I don't make sense to me. So I give them a bath on Sunday, and I want to see them get in it. And I've actually gave them a bath on Saturday on the 100-mile races, 200-mile race, which is real quick, and we're done in a few hours. I give them a bath while they're in there together, and then I separate them. On the longer races, I don't separate till the next day, because not all of them are home. If it's 8, 9 hours on the wing, they're not all home the same day. There's a few coming the next day. And so, but I'm gonna make sure they eat. I'm gonna go get them that small seeds and get them come down and eat something. And then the next day, I'll give them a bath together, because they're in together, it's easier. And then I separate, I'll just relax. Because once a bird gets wet, he wants to lay out and dry out. So I do it that day. As also, on Mondays, they won't fly very good. The cocks especially, if they go 20 minutes, that's what you're gonna get. Because what do they want? They want to go back into the nest and see if that hen's back in there. So Monday, they still don't believe that it's not in there. They're gonna come down and try to get in there. By Tuesday, they're accepting it. By Wednesday, they're flying an hour. They feel fine. Okay, they're showing me they're back okay. On a hard race, where we just get a few day birds, on 500, I'm gonna leave them together Sunday. On Monday, I may not turn them out. Then Tuesday, I'll fly them. And they probably fly 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. But you've got some that didn't go to the race, and they'll probably go 45, 50 minutes. The hens especially, the cocks maybe not. The cocks are really jealous that another cock's gonna get their box. They're more protective of that box almost than that hen. It's that territory. And so they're really concerned that another cock's gonna get that nest box. And you can take advantage of that. And I've had a good cock, and I've set up the widowhood box, and I've locked a stranger in his box before I basket him. He's not too happy about it. He don't like it. But like I say, you can try all these tricks, and they help on the good ones. On the bad ones, they might make them better, but still don't make them good enough. And you don't always have to do it. The gifted ones just keep repeating. The gifted ones just keep coming. My best cock this year, I had a good hen and a good cock that were really outstanding. Actually, I had, in the club, I had 14 of the first 17 high point birds. But they were coming, and they flew real good. And anyway, the best cock, he was full of vinegar. He was always fighting. He was always popping his wings. He was always running everybody away from the trap. It was his place, and the others were in his way, and he didn't like it. But my best hen, you'd never pick her. She was so passive. I had no idea how good she was till halfway through the season, and I realized she's first every week, first in the trap. You know, then all of a sudden I said, hey, this is a good pigeon, you know, and she kept it up. And so, but the good cock, he showed me he was full of energy and excited. You like that, but I've had them full of energy and excited that weren't any good also. You know, you gotta race them. You gotta race them. You can't. Any questions on old birds?
I have one.
Yeah.
You mentioned when you were getting hawk hit, you were taking them down the road for training. So just what you just said about, hey, when they come in Monday, they're not gonna do too well. Tuesday, they'll do better Wednesday. When you're forced because of hawk problems to do road training, what's your sequence of doing it? Yeah, do you just wait till Wednesday?
Yeah, I just waited till Wednesday and Thursday.
Okay.
And when I couldn't law fly.
Okay.
And I've experienced it sometimes where I didn't law fly until later in the season, then the hawks let up. You know, if a hawk hits you twice in a row, he's coming back. You're not gonna get rid of him easily. It's not unless you do something. And they can get you in trouble. But anyway, so, but I had troubles last year. And let me tell you what happened last year. In 21, let's say this one, 20. I moved to where I'm at now. I didn't get any young birds in the loft till June 17th. Because I bought the house in June, we built the loft immediately. I got the young bird pen done, went over to Steve's and got youngsters. I took it easy with those youngsters in young bird season because they were pretty young. I didn't pull any flights on them, and we'll talk about young birds in a minute. Didn't pull any flights, I didn't do any of that. And they flew pretty lightly. A few of the hens I flew to 300, but not many. Luckily we had sprint races, 120-mile sprint races every week, and I tried to put them on that. And they came pretty good on that. But then as soon as we got to old birds, they flew lights out. They flew lights out. And but I tried to do what I was normally do, but the hawk just kept working me. So typically, if a hawk's working, you gotta lock up for a few days, so that hawk could go somewhere else and feed and move on out, hopefully, right? Unless you can't get rid of him. So I just did that, we're getting right on top of the races, so I just started tossing them. And I've done it over my lifetime a few times, 2 or 3 different times. And like I said, the first year was what I ever did, it was in 73, I think. There was a fellow named Guy Turner in Dallas that I flew partners with. And Guy did, when I first got back out of the service, I had the birds over there, and Guy took care of the breeders, and whatever birds weren't racing, I did all the flying. It was a lot of fun. But when you get, the hens, as a rule, can take more work than the cocks. They seem to recover quicker than the cocks. The females can take more work. They can go more races. And the cocks, good cocks can go just as often, but if you've got 10 that you manage to go all the races with, 7 of them will be hens. It's just how it is, and I'm not, but maybe your best one's a cock. And I've had years down in Denton, when I flew down there, where my best 3 birds were cocks. The next year, my best 3 birds were hens. So I don't care. I just want good ones. I mean, as long as I can recognize them and get them to perform. When we get towards the end of the races, I do some things to encourage them. I think they get a little, routine gets a little steady on them, and I want to